dreaming, tasting, breathing, running, moving, feeling pain, painting, writing. We cannot do any of these things without our body's nervous system. In this lesson, you will learn about the nervous system and its components, reflex action, and the structure of the human brain. At the end of this lesson, you will be able to describe the functions of the nervous system, describe the fundamental unit of the nervous system, the neuron, explain the communication between the central nervous system and parts of the body, describe the functions of the components of the brain, describe the mechanism behind the movement of a muscle, define reflex action, describe the parts of the human brain, and describe the function of the human brain. We know that the nervous system comprises of the brain, spinal cord, and a huge network of nerves that are spread throughout the body. The nervous system is responsible for sending, receiving, and processing messages in the form of chemical signals called impulses. The main function of the nervous system is to control and coordinate voluntary activities like reading and walking, and involuntary activities like our heartbeat and breathing. Also, the brain uses the information it receives from the nerves to control and coordinate all our actions and reactions. Without it, we wouldn't exist. Let's look into the fundamental unit of the nervous system, the nerve cell, which is known as a neuron. Let's understand in detail the structure of a neuron. Each neuron consists of three parts, namely the cell body or cyton, branched projections called dendrites, and the long process from the cell body called axon. The axon terminals of each neuron are placed near the dendrites of another neuron. This gap between the two neurons is called a synapse. All such axons or nerve fibers are bundled and enclosed in a sheath to form a nerve. Nerves are seen as thin threads that emerge from the brain and spinal cord and branch out to all parts of the body. Nerves carry messages back and forth, similar to telephone wires. Let's analyze the different types of nerves. There are three types of nerves: sensory nerves, motor nerves, and mixed nerves. These nerves carry information in the form of electrochemical signals called impulses to and from the brain and spinal cord to the muscles located throughout the body. Sensory nerves send messages from the sense organs to the brain or spinal cord. So, our sense organs provide the nervous system with information about the environment by means of sight, hearing, smell, taste, pressure, and pain. Motor nerves carry messages back from the brain or spinal cord to all the muscles and glands in the body. Mixed nerves carry both sensory and motor nerves. When a neuron is stimulated, the dendritic tips of the nerve cell generate a tiny electrical impulse. This impulse travels from the dendrite to the cell body and then along the axon to its end. At the end of the axon, the electrical impulse releases some chemicals which cross the gap, called the synapse, and start a similar electrical impulse in a dendrite of the next neuron. This is generally how nervous impulses travel in the body. This process continues till the impulses from the neurons are delivered to other cells, such as muscle cells or glands. How does the muscle cell move after it has received action information from the nervous tissue? In response to the nerve's electrical impulses, muscle cells have special proteins that stimulate the muscle to change both their shape and arrangement, leading to muscular contraction. Have you heard of the term reflex action? Reflex action is an involuntary action by the body. We use the word reflex to describe a sudden action in response to something in the environment, which is unconsciously done and is not a controlled reaction. So, how do we control and coordinate our hand to move away from the heat? The thinking part of the brain is located at the forward end of our skull and consists of dense networks of intricately arranged neurons. Neurons carry signals from the body to the brain. This is a relatively long process and may result in a burnt hand. To overcome this problem, the nerves that detect heat are connected to the nerves that move muscles. Now the process of detecting the heat signal is complete. This pathway is called a reflex arc. So, where is the best place for reflex arc connections to be made? It would definitely be the spinal cord, as the nerves from all over the body meet in a bundle in the spinal cord on their way to the brain. Thus, reflex arcs are formed in the spinal cord itself, although the information input goes on to reach the brain. Reflex arcs in animals have evolved because the thinking process of the brain is not fast enough or as evolved to efficiently function for quick responses. The nervous system is divided into two systems, the central nervous system and the peripheral nervous system. Both these systems are connected and function together. The central nervous system includes the brain and the spinal cord. Its main function is to get information from the body and send out instructions. Let's discuss the brain in detail. The brain is the main coordinating center of the body. It is a relatively small organ and constitutes about 2% of our total body weight. The human brain is a delicate organ and protected in a brain box called the cranium. Inside the cranium, the brain is contained in a fluid-filled space which provides further shock absorption. All the neural connections are concentrated in the brain. The cell body of the neuron is concentrated towards the outer region of the brain and the axon towards the inner region. This forms the grooves that are associated with the degree of intelligence. The central nervous system communicates with the muscles or glands in the body in two ways. The first is by reflex action. The second is by the action of the brain that allows us to think and take actions based on our thinking. The brain has three major regions, namely the forebrain, midbrain, and hindbrain. The forebrain is the main thinking part of the brain. It consists of the cerebrum and diencephalon. Cerebrum is the seat of memory, intelligence, and sensory centers like hearing, smell, and sight. Diencephalon consists of thalamus and hypothalamus. The thalamus plays a major role in regulating arousal and the level of awareness. It is the seat for pain and pressure. The hypothalamus regulates the temperature in the body. The midbrain connects the forebrain to the hindbrain and controls the reflexes for sight and hearing. The hindbrain consists of the cerebellum, pons, and medulla. Now what about activities like walking in a straight line, riding a bicycle, and picking up a pencil? It is the cerebellum of the hindbrain that coordinates all these muscular activities and maintains balance and posture. The next part is the pons that carries the impulses between the cerebellum and cerebrum. It controls arousal and regulates respiration. Medulla controls involuntary activities like blood pressure, salivation, breathing, beating of the heart, and peristaltic movements of the alimentary canal. The next part of the central nervous system includes the spinal cord. The spinal cord extends from the medulla of the brain through the whole length of the vertebral column and is protected by the vertebral column or backbone. The peripheral nervous system includes the cranial and spinal nerves. The cranial nerves originate from the brain, and a few cranial nerves carry impulses to and from the central nervous system. Some cranial nerves are mixed, while the rest are sensory and motor nerves. Spinal nerves originate from the spinal cord, and all spinal nerves carry impulses to and from the central nervous system. Spinal nerves are mixed nerves. The peripheral nervous system receives as well as transmits impulses. the former is carried out by sensory nerves and the latter is carried out by motor nerves. Motor nerves control both voluntary and involuntary functions. Based on the functions performed, the peripheral nervous system is classified as autonomous nervous system and somatic nervous system. The autonomous nervous system includes motor nerves that control involuntary actions like breathing, beating of the heart, and peristaltic movements of the alimentary canal. Voluntary actions like muscle movement and blinking of the eyelid are carried out by the somatic nervous system. Wonder how the squirrel was able to react so quickly and escape from the eagle's claws? This lesson is about control and coordination in animal bodies, which includes the nervous system and the endocrine system. In this lesson, you will learn about the endocrine system in animals. At the end of this lesson, you will be able to describe the levels of control and coordination in the animal body, define the endocrine system and compare it with the nervous system, define hormones and describe properties of hormones, explain the endocrine system in humans, explain the different hormones released and their functions, and explain the mechanism of hormone regulation. The animal body has two levels of control and coordination: nervous coordination and chemical coordination. The nervous system and the endocrine system act in a coordinated manner for the proper regulation of body activities. The nervous system consists of the brain, the spinal cord and the nerves. The endocrine system consists of glands and hormones. There are important differences between the two systems. In the nervous system, electrical impulses are transmitted through the nerves, which are composed of neurons. A neuron acts fast, but only for a short time. In the endocrine system, chemicals called hormones are secreted by the glands into the blood. The action of a hormone is slow, but lasts for a longer duration of time. The nervous system and the endocrine system are similar too. Both systems involve chemical substances. The nervous system releases neurotransmitters, while the endocrine system secretes hormones. The endocrine system consists of glands called ductless glands because they empty their secretions directly into the blood. Hormones play a crucial role in the control and coordination of the body. Let's take a look at the general characteristics of hormones. They are secreted in minute quantities. They are poured directly into the blood and carried by blood circulation. They may be steroid, proteins, peptides, and amino acid derivatives. They act on target tissues or organs that are located far from the site of production. They are target specific. They are not stored and, except thyroxine, have high specificity. They are degraded by tissues and are excreted by the liver to the bile and by the kidney into urine. They bring about their characteristic effect on target cells by modifying cellular activities and They act as chemical messengers between the nervous system and body organs. For a better understanding of the endocrine system, let's look at the endocrine system in the human body. It consists of the pituitary gland, the pineal gland, the hypothalamus, the thyroid, the parathyroid, the thymus, the adrenal gland, the pancreas, the testes, and the ovary. We will look at the functions of each of these glands. The pituitary is a pea-shaped gland present at the base of the brain. It is connected to the ventral wall of the diencephalon. It secretes a large number of hormones that regulate organs as well as other glands. Hence, it is also known as the master gland. One of the hormones it secretes is the growth hormone. This hormone controls the development of bones and muscles. Hyposecretion of this hormone in childhood leads to dwarfism, while hypersecretion of the hormone can lead to gigantism. The hypothalamus is located in the forebrain. It is a part of the diencephalon. It links the nervous system and the endocrine system through the pituitary gland. The hypothalamus controls body temperature, hunger, thirst, fatigue, and sweating. The thyroid gland is located in the neck, ventral to larynx in our body. It is known as the largest endocrine gland. It produces thyroxine, a hormone which regulates the carbohydrate, protein, and fat metabolism in the body so as to provide the best balance of growth. Hyposecretion of thyroxine leads to creatinine in children and myxedema in adults, whereas hypersecretion leads to exophthalmic goiter in adults. Iodine is essential for the synthesis of thyroxine. A deficiency of iodine in our diet can lead to a deficiency of thyroxine, which may cause goiter. One of the symptoms of goiter is a swollen neck. Parathyroid glands are two pairs of small, oval-shaped glands embedded on the dorsal surface of the thyroid gland in the neck. It secretes a parathyroid hormone or parathormone. Parathormone helps in the regulation of calcium and phosphate ions in bones and blood. Hyposecretion leads to parathyroid tetany, and hypersecretion causes osteoporosis. The adrenal gland is located above the kidney, hence suprarenal glands. It secretes a hormone called adrenaline. This hormone is also called hormone of fight or flight, or the emergency hormone. It prepares the body to face an emergency condition of physical stress like danger, anger, and excitement. It is usually secreted in small amounts, but is secreted in large amounts when a person is under physical stress. It enables a greater supply of glucose into the blood to give us a lot of energy in a short span to either fight or flee from the stressful situation. The pancreas is located just below the stomach within the curve of the duodenum and secretes hormones such as insulin, glucagon, somatostatin, and pancreatic polypeptide. It is the second largest endocrine gland. Insulin regulates the sugar level in our blood. If the insulin hormone is secreted in small amounts, the sugar level in our blood rises and causes a disease called diabetes mellitus. Hypersecretion of insulin causes hypoglycemia, sweating, and hunger. Diabetic patients may be given injections of insulin to control the sugar level in the blood. A pair of ovaries is the female sex organ that lies in the abdominal cavity. They produce two hormones, namely estrogen and progesterone. Estrogen controls the changes that occur during puberty, like a feminine voice, soft skin, and mammary glands. Progesterone controls the uterine changes in the menstrual cycle and helps in the maintenance of pregnancy. A pair of testes is the male sex organ located in the scrotum, which is outside the abdomen. They produce the hormone testosterone. Testosterone controls the changes which occur during puberty, like a deeper voice, facial, and body hair. The pineal gland is located near the center of the brain, dorsal to the diencephalon. It produces the hormone melatonin. Melatonin affects reproductive development, modulation of wake and sleep patterns, and seasonal functions. The production of melatonin by the pineal gland is stimulated by darkness and inhibited by daylight. The thymus is located in front of the heart in the upper part of the sternum. The thymus possesses a type of white blood cells known as a T lymphocyte. These T lymphocytes govern cellular immunity, which means they help cells recognize and destroy invading bacteria, virus, abnormal cell growth such as cancer, and foreign tissue. We have looked at all the glands in the endocrine system, the hormones they secrete, and the effect the hormones have on the body. It is very important that hormones are secreted in precise quantities. Deficiency or an increase in secretion leads to harmful effects. Thus, the timing and the amount of hormones released are regulated by feedback mechanisms in the body. For example, if the sugar level in our blood rises, this is detected by the cells of the pancreas, which respond by producing more insulin. As the blood sugar level falls, insulin secretion reduces. Signals from the environment. Plants are no exception. But, unlike animals, plants don't have nerves for controlling and coordinating their activities. So how do they respond to stimuli? Plants respond to stimuli with the help of chemical compounds secreted by cells whenever needed. In this lesson, you will learn about the types of coordination in plants. At the end of this lesson, you will be able to differentiate between plant movements due to growth and plant movements independent of growth. Explain different types of tropic movement in plants. Compare and contrast movement in multicellular organisms. Describe chemical coordination in plants. Describe plant hormones and their functions. Plants show two different types of movement, one independent of growth and the other dependent on growth. For example, the touch-me-not plant of the mimosa family folds up and droops when touched. The leaves of the sensitive plant move quickly in response to touch, but this movement is not associated with any growth. However, when a seed germinates, the root grows downwards while the stem grows upwards into the air. This movement of a plant is an example of growth. Plant movement during growth of the plant can be directional or non-directional. If movement occurs in the direction of the stimulus, it is known as tropic movement. Environmental triggers such as light or gravity determine the direction of growth of a plant. The most common tropic movements are phototropism and geotropism. Growth towards a stimulus is a positive tropism, while growth away from a stimulus is a negative tropism. Shoots respond by bending towards light, thus showing positive phototropism. They grow away from gravity, thus showing negative geotropism. Roots bend away from light, indicating negative phototropism, and grow towards gravity, indicating positive geotropism. The pea plant climbs up other plants or fences by means of tendrils, which are sensitive to touch. When the plant comes in contact with any support, it entwines itself around the object and clings to it. This is an example of thigmotropism. So, we see that plants respond to stimuli slowly by growing in a particular direction. As this growth is directional, it appears as if the plant is moving. Hydrotropism is another growth response in which the direction is determined by the stimuli of water. Chemotropism is movement caused by chemical stimulus. The growth of pollen tubes towards ovules is an example of this type of tropism. Let's contrast the movement in plants with movement in animals. The movement of a sensitive plant in response to touch is very quick, whereas the movement of a sunflower in response to day or night is quite slow. Growth-related movement of plants will be even slower. As such, animal bodies also exhibit controlled directions to growth. Our arms and fingers grow in a certain direction, and not haphazardly. Controlled movements can be slow or fast. For fast responses, the information transfer has to be quick. Electrical impulses are an excellent means for that. But electrical impulses reach only those cells that are connected by nervous tissue and not every cell in an animal body. Cells also cannot continually create and transmit electrical impulses. Instead, chemical communication is used. Stimulated cells release chemical compounds called hormones which diffuse all around the cell. If other cells around have the means to detect this compound using receptors on their surfaces, then they would be able to recognize information and even transmit it. This is a slower process but can potentially reach all cells regardless of nervous connections. Plants have various hormones which help to coordinate growth, development and response to the environment. They are synthesized at places away from where they act and simply diffuse to the area of action. Let's consider the first example of the sensitive plant responding to touch. There aren't any nervous or muscle tissues to detect touch. So how do the leaves move in response? Like animals, plants also use an electrical chemical means to convey this information from cell to cell. That is why the point where a plant has been touched differs from the part that actually moves. Here is an example of the mimosa plant where chemicals and movement of water in plant cells control the movement of leaves. This movement is independent of growth. Again, like animals, plant cells must change shape in order for movement to happen. Instead of the specialized proteins found in animal muscle cells, plant cells change shape by changing the amount of water in them, resulting in swelling or shrinking, and therefore in changing shapes. This type of response is called nastic response. Unlike tropisms, movement in plants do not occur in the direction of the stimulus. Some other examples are the opening and closing of flowers and the movement of the Venus flytrap. Let's study the different types of plant hormones. Auxins. They are synthesized at the tip of their shoots and help the plant to grow. When one side of the plant is exposed to light, auxin diffuses towards the shady side of the shoot. This concentration of auxin stimulates the cells to grow longer on the side of the shoot which is away from light. Thus, the plant appears to bend towards light. They also promote cell enlargement and cell differentiation in plants. Gibberellins. They help in the elongation of internode and play a role in the growth of the plant along with auxins. Cytokinins promote cell division. They are present in large numbers in areas of rapid cell division such as fruits and seeds. They also promote the opening of the stomata. Plants also need signals to stop growing, and these are provided by the hormone abscisic acid, which inhibits growth. Its effects include the wilting of leaves and also promote the closing of the stomata.